On a cold December evening in Talavera de la Reina, Spanish football rediscovered one of its oldest and most cherished truths: that no badge is too small, no stadium too modest, and no opponent too mighty when belief takes hold. The Copa del Rey has always been a competition where dreams stretch beyond budgets and where courage can briefly close the gap between giants and underdogs. On this night, under the floodlights of Estadio Municipal El Prado, Talavera and Real Madrid played out a contest that transcended the final scoreline, leaving behind a story of resistance, brilliance, tension, and raw emotion. Long before kickoff, the atmosphere around the stadium hinted that this would not be an ordinary football match. Streets surrounding El Prado filled hours early, scarves wrapped tightly against the winter air, voices rising in song and anticipation. For Talavera supporters, this was more than a game. It was a rare moment when the world's gaze turned toward their club, their city, and their passion. Facing Real Madrid, a name synonymous with dominance and history, represented both an honor and a challenge that many never imagined witnessing on their home ground. When the teams emerged from the tunnel, the contrast was striking. Real Madrid's players walked with the calm confidence of those accustomed to global stages, Champions League nights, and relentless expectation. Talavera's players, by contrast, carried a visible hunger, eyes wide, shoulders squared, aware that this match could define careers and live forever in memory. From the stands, the roar that greeted them was not one of intimidation, but of unwavering belief. From the opening whistle, Real Madrid sought control. Their passing was measured, their movement deliberate, their intent clear. They wanted to establish authority early, to suffocate any spark of hope that Talavera might carry. Yet Talavera refused to retreat. Every challenge was contested, every loose ball chased with desperation. The crowd responded instantly, feeding off the intensity on the pitch, turning each defensive action into a surge of noise that echoed across the stadium. As minutes passed, it became clear that this would not be a simple exercise for the visitors. Talavera's compact shape frustrated Madrid's rhythm, forcing them wide and denying space between the lines. The underdogs may not have matched Madrid in technical quality, but they compensated with discipline, unity, and relentless effort. The match began to settle into a tense rhythm. Madrid probing patiently, Talavera resisting with determination. The breakthrough came not through flowing football, but through pressure. Madrid's persistence eventually forced an error inside the box, and when the referee pointed to the penalty spot, a hush fell over the stadium. Kylian Mbappé stood over the ball, the embodiment of modern footballing stardom. The moment carried weight beyond the scoreline, a duel between global expectation and local hope. Mbappé struck the penalty with ice-cold precision, sending the goalkeeper the wrong way and putting Real Madrid ahead. For a moment, it felt as though the inevitable had arrived. Just before halftime, misfortune compounded Talavera's task. A defensive scramble ended with the ball deflecting into their own net, gifting Madrid a second goal. The timing was cruel. 2 goals down at the break, against one of the most ruthless teams in world football, seemed a mountain too steep to climb. As the teams walked off, some feared that the second half would simply confirm what many had predicted before kickoff. But football rarely respects logic alone. When Talavera returned to the pitch, something had shifted. Instead of resignation, there was renewed fight. Instead of fear, there was freedom. With nothing to lose, they began to push forward with greater intent. Passes became braver. Runs became more direct. The crowd sensed it immediately, their chants growing louder, urging their team on. Real Madrid, perhaps subconsciously, eased off. With a packed schedule and bigger battles ahead, their focus drifted toward game management rather than domination. That subtle drop in intensity opened the door, and Talavera stepped through it with conviction. As the clock ticked down, belief turned into opportunity. In the 80th minute, Nahuel Arroyo found himself in space and seized the moment, striking the ball past the Madrid goalkeeper. The stadium erupted in pure, unfiltered joy. The goal was not just a reduction of the deficit. It was validation. Talavera had proven they belonged on the same pitch, that they could hurt the Giants. Suddenly, Tension crept into Real Madrid's play. Passes lost their sharpness, defensive lines retreated, and urgency replaced composure. The match, once under control, now teetered on the edge of chaos. For Talavera, every attack carried the promise of history. For Madrid, every defensive action carried the weight of expectation. Sensing danger, Madrid turned once again to their most reliable source of reassurance. Mbappé, ever the difference-maker, delivered with ruthless efficiency. His second goal late in the match restored Madrid's two-goal cushion and seemed to extinguish the flickering hope of a comeback. It was a moment that underscored the gulf in individual quality, the kind of moment only elite players consistently produce. Yet even then, Talavera refused to accept their fate quietly. Deep into stoppage time, with the crowd urging one final push, Gonzalo Di Renzo unleashed a strike that defied circumstance. The ball soared to the top corner, unstoppable, breathtaking. For a split second, time seemed to freeze before the stadium exploded in celebration. The goal changed nothing and everything at once. The outcome remained unchanged, but the story was transformed. When the final whistle blew, Real Madrid had advanced, but they did so bruised and breathless. Talavera's players collapsed to the turf, some in exhaustion, others in tears, not of despair, but of pride. They had pushed a footballing giant to the brink and emerged with dignity.
אמבפה בנקודה הלבנה מדייק לו. קיליאן אמבפה עושה את זה דקה 41. ריאל מדריד 1, טלאברה 0.
ריאל מדריד לא צריכה מתנות בשביל לנצח פה את טלאברה, אבל מקבל את
אמבפה, איזה תרגיל של אמבפה. קיליאן אמבפה עם הרוחב בשער עצמי, עושה כאן 2-0 לריאל מדריד. זה אולי שער עצמי, אבל התרגיל שעשה כאן אמבפה פשוט ענק, וריאל תרד להפסקה ביתרון כפול עם צמד של קיליאן אמבפה.
אני לא בטוח
אמבפה לוקח על עצמו עם הביתה, חיימר רואה את הכדור נכנס פנימה. דקה 88, קיליאן אמבפה כישף אולי את הכדור שנכנס פנימה ונועד סופית את העלייה.
It was about the roar of a crowd that refused to be silenced, the courage of players who dared to dream, and the reminder that football's soul still thrives far from the brightest lights. On this December night, the Giants survived, but the underdogs won something just as powerful: respect, pride, and a story that will be told for generations.